Hi, you're tuning in to AWANI Review with me, Cynthia. Joining me on the show today is a very, very special guest, Tan Sri Lim Siyan. Thank you so much for coming
My
on
pleasure,
the show.
yeah.
Now, Tan Sri has a long, long list of accomplishments. I can't possibly name them all, but most notably, Tan Sri was the former Bank Negara Deputy Governor. In fact, no one else can say this, but Tan Sri has served all of Malaysia's 6 Prime Minister when he was a central banker for 34 years. Of course, Tan Sri has since retired, but he has sat on and still sits on a number of boards of companies.
Correct, yeah.
He writes, and it seems that you soon be going to teaching as well. Tell
Correct.
us about what are you up to these days?
Well, I begin to shift. You see, I run a consulting company specializing in corporate strategies, finance, and things like that, where I know something. But as you grow older, I'm 80, today. I'm 80 years old, so I begin to wind down and do things that I want to do before I miss them, And so one of the things I want to do is to write.
Mm-hmm.
I have talked to my friends in Bank Negara. After 60 years of development in finance, there are hardly any books on the financial system. But I can't write them alone. I need researchers, I need help. And so I'm talking to Bank Negara. Hopefully they'll agree to write a number of books on the financial system. That's one on my priority list. I will teach very much on public policy. I will also teach on economic history. I think one of the things that students in this country lack is that of a historical perspective, and you need to know that in order to avoid making the mistakes of history, so that history won't repeat itself. So I like history, so I'm going to teach some economic history. I will continue to write my column. I've done so far, I think, 250 columns. And now increasingly difficult to find interesting subjects to write about.
Now, Tan Sri, you launched your book today. It's
Yeah.
titled Trying Troubled Times Amid Trauma and Tumult. Quite a tongue twister, that one.
Yeah, I call it 5 T's.
The 5 T's.
Yeah.
It covers a wide range of topics from macroeconomics, currencies, China, Donald Trump, artificial intelligence, climate change, so much that you've covered. But what, in your opinion, do you feel are the greatest threats to us right now, as we move into 2020?
At this point in time, Donald Trump. Because the United States is, whether you like United States or not, it's the world's most powerful economy. And its leader, the president, has enormous influence. What he says, in fact, he doesn't even have to say anything, although he says a lot. All he has to do is what in central banking we call the governor's eyebrow, When you don't like something, you just lift your eyebrow, people take notice, things like that, you see. And because he is so unpredictable, so uninformed, and so impulsive, people who do business, people who run public policy get very afraid, what is going to happen, especially when the world is beginning to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And once, so far so good, the United States is still strong. The latest numbers look very good, I must say. So it's unlikely, in my view, at this time, the US will run into recession.
So I want to pick your point on that because there has been so much talk about recession, especially earlier part of the year during the whole conversation about trade war between China and US. But if you look at the MSCI last Monday, it tracked the highest in 21 months. So markets are feeling quite positive, but what are your thoughts? Do you think that we are closer aging towards a recession?
I'm one of those who believe that the relationship between markets and the economy are quite distant. Although there's some relationship, but quite distant. Yeah. In the US, it happened to be moving along the same lines, right? The economy is doing good, and the stock market, as you said, it's breaking records. But in Europe, the markets are still doing well, but the economies are awful. Same with the UK, you know. So a lot of this reflects uncertainties. People say that businessmen like uncertainties. Rubbish, you know. People, businessmen don't like risks. So they learn to manage risk. You can manage risk if things are more predictable, less uncertain. But when you have a person like Trump, everything goes out of the window, and so people don't know what to do. You look at what's happening in Europe and Brexit and all that. It's terrible. Look at what is UK. Fortunately, in the US, you still have a very strong economy. Some of it lately is due to Trump, but most of the foundations were laid by Obama. Trump would never admit to that.
So there seems to be an erosion of multilateralism with, you see, the US and what's happening with the UK and Brexit. What are your thoughts on the state of the economy, the global growth in the coming year, taking into account all these uncertainties?
I'm still old school, you know. Multilateralism is the way to go, no question about it. Yeah, no man is an island, you know, no matter how powerful you are. And so even if you look at the U.S., certainly the professors I know, a lot of congressmen whom I know, are trying to put pressure or try to influence Trump to change his ways, you know, because you can't live on your own in this world, whether it is climate change or trade. You look at what this trade war has done. For the first time, world trade is growing slower than world growth. And world growth is already slowing a lot. It's a long time since I saw this statistic. World trade's growing slower than world growth. That's not good. And a lot of it is reflected in the trade war, yeah.
And it's not just trade. We're looking at a war being waged on the technology side.
Obviously,
US,
yeah.
China. In fact, in your book, chapter 22, Trump's trade war is really about dominance over technology and artificial intelligence. Can you tell us a bit more about what do we expect out of this tech war between the two big countries?
I think there's no question today. In terms of fundamental research-based technology, the US is still number one. But in terms of practical applications of technology in the world of digitalization, China is way ahead. If you look at digitalization, a third of the Chinese economy is already, in fact more than a third, is already digitalized. The US, the last I saw, up to 15%. They're slow. And so they have to catch up. And now they begin to realize that if they don't do something strong in America about 5G, 6G, they will be left behind. And typical of Trump, instead of competing with China, he uses his brutal strength, you know, the strength of the American economy, to get rid of China. So
well, some critics say he's just leveling the playing field.
I don't think so. Okay, there's already a lot of talk about the Chinese subsidizers, what they do. It's not the Chinese. Most people, as they try to catch up, they tend to pick winners. It's not easy to pick winners, not even China. China has shown that even they cannot pick winners. A lot of their winners have gone down. The Americans have shown that they can't pick winners either. So there's nothing like competition, in my view, right? Okay, fair enough. There's a way to handle China to level the playing field. Hence, the need for WTO to reform itself on trade. And that's where you could sit down and find out what are fair guidelines, fair rules of the game. I'm sure the Chinese will respond. Yeah.
I like
So,
to
but
go-
the way Trump is doing it is wrong. Not the right way to do it. Yeah.
I like to go back to the point of tech supremacy and the battle to be the leader in tech, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing a handful of companies really dominating the world economy, especially in the tech space, right? The FANGs.
Yeah, the facts. Yeah.
Where does
Correct.
it leave the rest of us, like Southeast Asia, like Europe? These companies tend to be dominated by either China or US.
But the beauty of technology is you only have the advantage of a first mover. Once you have started it, anybody can do it. You know, it's a matter of time to catch up. And so, in the process of catching up, what people do who are left behind is, you have the resources, you reinvest in yourself, R&D, and you catch up that way. And who knows, you develop something which the Chinese don't have, or you develop something which the Chinese have been trying to develop for many, many years. You see, so long as the world continues to be open, so long as there's cooperation, there's multilateralism, I don't see how the Southeast Asia can be left out. I don't see that.
But is there a sense that leaders in the tech space are becoming too big when it comes to issue of trust?
Well, this
data?
is the issue in America today, right? People think that Google is too big, Amazon is too big.
Facebook,
Yeah.
what's
Facebook is,
what's
that's
happened
right.
with Cambridge Analytica?
Exactly. It's too big. So they're having discussions now whether they should break them out. There's no one view on this. I know many of my friends at Harvard think that they should not be broken up, because not at this time anyway, because you need this bigness and their resources to go the next step. We are only towards the end of 4G now, moving to 5G. The real price is 6G. And 6G is only beginning to develop, not yet. People conceptually, they know what 6G can do. 6G is 100 times faster than 5G. People don't understand why the speed important, you know. Like, for example, if you have an autonomous car, driverless car, and somebody comes in front of the car, if you're only on 4G, he will die, he will knock it. But if you're on 6G, the transmission, the sensors move so fast that the car has the ability to stop it on time. That's the beauty of it's all speed. Speed, yeah, 6G. And 6G is only beginning now. And the Americans are afraid of 6G.
Well, as we are still battling for dominance of 5G, a lot of people are very concerned about artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
automation, and how it will not be used for good but for evil if it falls into the wrong hands, or till we get to a point where even the machines perhaps can control us some ways. Do you think so? Do you think that will happen? And what kind of conversations that we should be having right now, the ethics, the ethical questions that we should be having?
It all starts with data. 4G, 5G, 6G needs data. Lots and lots and lots of data. And most of this data are human data. And once you get into human data, things, ethical use of the data, personal values, personal invasion of privacy, and things like that become very critical. And so now there's a lot of people, unfortunately not so much the philosophers and the moralists, are looking at the ethics of data. I've just finished my next column on digitalization, and I talk about this. It is one of the critical things we need to think about. For example, your data today, most of us are quite cavalier about it. Just let the banks have it, let the credit cards have it. But we forget that once they dwell deep into it, it involves a lot of personal information, which people won't normally give away so easily. Yeah.
So do you see that maybe, perhaps in the future, you'll see a similar WTO kind of organization, but to govern data?
I don't see that. I don't see that.
Commodity, right?
This is something like, it is, what you need is ethical behavior, a moral standard. So we need to put standards around.
And who should be taking up this responsibility? Private sector, governments?
Probably the regulators have to do something, yeah. I don't think it will be easy to move on to the international front, but it is something which regulators, I thought regulators, because it's more than government, regulators we have to come to grips with. What are the guidelines of model, what are the guidelines for future moral behavior of ethical, of data?
Among your colleagues, I'm sure there's a lot of conversation about it, but do you think it has reached the level where it's taken seriously by regulators then?
No.
Why not?
People don't see the impact of it yet. You know, partly because most of the people who take decisions, whether in business or government, or even the professionals, don't fully understand the impact of digitalization. And that's why digitalization is so slow. You look at Malaysia. I always complain about the banks. Lately, I received a refund to put into my bank, and I got a call from the bank, and the bank says, "Tan Sri, please come and put your thumbprint. Without your thumbprint, I can't credit you." In this day and age, you get me? So banks don't understand digitalization, especially most members of the board. And if the boards don't push it, you will lag behind. And that's why we lag behind.
But you see like companies such as Alibaba and financial and
Some
how
can, but you look at you look at some of our businesses, how far are they from digitalization?
So what's stopping them from moving faster towards digitalization?
When they begin to lose business.
Aren't they already?
But all of them are behaving the same way. So it's okay. It's only when somebody digitalizes way above the others, and then the others wake up. You see?
But if you look at banks, their competitors now are not the other bank A or bank B. It's people or companies like Alibaba, like Amazon, could
Quite
even be
true.
Starbucks in the next 5 years.
Quite true. But the point is, none of them have access. They need licenses from Bank Negara, right? So typical example, you say, let's set up a payment system. In order to get the payment system to run, at the moment, most of them are done through wallets of banks and so on. All these need central bank permission. You see, so these people are not in the game until the banking system or the finance opens up and bring in telcos, bring in the likes of Alibaba and people like that. And then the banks begin to worry.
I'd like to get your thoughts about what are key trends that worry you the most at this point in time. I know you mentioned Donald Trump, but in the bigger picture, things like automation, loss of jobs, climate change, what are some of the issues that are pressing, but we're not really looking into it yet?
Climate change. The things that worry me are issues that you don't see physically. If we see them physically, we know what to do. But most of these are virtual. Like for example, even measurement of GNP. It's out of date. It's what my children call so yesterday, you know. Out of date. Because the GNP measures physical output. Virtual output is not. For example, you settle a lot of things on the mobile phone, right? You use the internet. You save a lot of money, but none of these are reflected. You see? So we need to change the way we think, the way we operate, the way we measure. And somebody got to take the lead in this. And it's very, very slow, I must say.
or on the issue of climate change, we know that somebody has washed their hands off
Sure,
at touching
yeah.
it completely. And then we have things like the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and we have a timeline. Of course, Sunway University and the Jeffrey Chia Foundation has been actively advocating that there has been some progress, right? You see that extreme poverty and child mortality has fallen, but hunger is rising. You know, half the world's people still lack basic access to education, to essential healthcare. Why are we so off track?
You know, you're touching on an area that has so many facets, but let me narrow it down for you. It's the system. Think of, for example, income inequality, which is critical. You were talking about poverty and all that. Critical. The system that we have, the more successful the system is, the more unequal the world is. You look at the United States, right? Most powerful country in the world, but the capitalist system rewards the 1% that owns most of the share, and those that are poor get nothing.
But the 1%
And so you
will
wonder,
argue that we are paying the taxes.
quite true, but the point is income inequalities begin to widen. That's my point, that the system itself drives, or put it the other way, the system perpetuates income inequality. So you have to change it. Part of it is changed through what we call the transfer system. That is to say, if you are poor, okay, I give you food stamps. If you are poor, I give you some money and so on. So if you add into, if you put in transfers, the income inequality gap closes. That's true, right? But this is politics. And politics is not a good guide in this. That means when they feel like it, they will narrow it down. When they don't feel like it, they will go for, just like Trump, right? Helping the rich get richer. And nothing, unless the system changes, is going to be very difficult. You can go on all the 17 sustainable goals. Everyone is the same, from education and so on. Like, for example, you look at the education system. How is our education system being changed to reflect virtual reality, digitalization? Nothing. Nothing has changed. And this is the what is mainly because you don't see the effects until 5-10 years from today. Same with climate change. Climate change are a bit worrisome because what is happening today, right? Flooding, drought,
Displacement.
all these things happen.
Millions
So
of people.
people still say maybe it has something to do with climate, because Trump doesn't believe that. Yeah, but so there's still a lot of Americans who don't believe that. Yeah.
I like to bring the conversation closer to home, to
Yeah.
Malaysia. I mean, to speak about inequality, it is also rising in Malaysia. And when you look at some of the measures and you talk about some of the reforms that really needs to take place, for Malaysia, what is the path towards a more sustainable growth?
Start from base one, before I answer that directly. In order to reform, you must have a system in the economy that over time raises the bar in terms of industrialization in the way that you produce. What I'm saying is the value chain has to go up. You must have a system like that. If you don't have a system like that, whatever you do doesn't make sense. Once you have, so that's the first thing you have to do. This picture must be kept correct. Once you have the big picture, the reforms are simple. One, you start from why I don't understand. I just don't understand why we need to import cheap labor. Just don't understand. What this does is it perpetuates if you are in manufacturing, it perpetuates system of keeping wages down, keeping your production process less productive. All keep it up because you use cheap labor. So you never go up the ladder. So previously the government was completely wrong, right? You cannot become a middle class industry and yet import cheap labor.
So
Not
in your
compatible.
assessment,
So first thing, stop that.
okay.
Yeah, except with some exceptions. One exception is if husband and wife work, and since Malaysians don't do these maids, they're allowed to import maids. Yeah, one of the for taking care of the elderly, things like that. But I have no sympathy for plantations, construction, and things like that. We have reached a stage of technological improvements. We have enough engineers and processors that can take care of all these things. That's the first thing you do. Secondly, education. You must teach people how to think, not how to sit exams. And once you think, you can be trained to go up the ladder. You see? Third, the way government incentivizes industries has to change. We should incentivize industries that go up the value chain. That's why I say the model is very important. Once you have the model right, reform is very easy.
Do you think we have the structures in place to do that at the moment?
No.
So what is your assessment of
Partly
people in
because,
charge at
you
the
see,
moment?
in order to improve, in order to reform, you must have a plan, not just a plan that is implementable, right? No point having fantastic, get a first-class honors degree in English to write all the niceties about what we are going to do the next 10 years. No use. What we need to do is a plan with a vision and a plan on how to bring the plan into fruition. I don't think we have that, which is unfortunate. We have the expertise to do that. It's a matter of marshalling the experts by the politicians, because the politicians in the end call the tune, right? They have to be committed, politically committed, that they want the plan on the ground. And after that is technical things.
One final question.
Yeah.
Is there political will at this point?
At the moment, I don't see it.
Okay.
You get me into trouble, but
All right. Thank you so much, Tan Sri. It's been great speaking with you. I think we could have gone on for maybe an hour or so, but that's all the time we have. Thank you so much.
good.
And congratulations again on your book launch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.